Michael, first off, just on the red card decision not being rescinded, what are your thoughts on that?
Shocked, really. For me, it is what it is. I feel for young Joe, really, because 3 minutes into his senior career, it feels a little bit unjust. But we've got to take it on the chin and move on. Luckily, it's a week because there's 3 games in a week, so he'll be back at it, following Saturday or Tuesday, back at training sort of thing. So it's 3 games, but it's disappointing. I think the result of the appeal is vastly disappointing, but we are where we are now.
What happens in that situation when you put the appeal in? What did you say did you say to them to say this shouldn't be a red card?
Yeah, I think it's mostly, I don't want to get too much detail about it, it's mostly about the process and the reasons for the sending off. Leyton high was the reason for the sending off. It looks a little bit late, but it doesn't look high at all when you watch it on the replay. So it's more about following the process. So it's just a difficult situation because for anything I feel more for him than anything, because he wanted to get going here obviously, and he came on, he had a couple of little good runs, and part of him getting into the game was to try and get him some minutes to get him going, and obviously that stuttered his start really. So, but we move on. The lads have rallied around him brilliantly. The dressing room, he was so upset coming off the pitch. We've just got to get back to what we do and not worry about that moving forward.
On the injury front, I think of the players that are out, Bailey Cadamarsh was probably the one that was closest to the return. How's he getting on? Yeah,
he's gone back for another scan today. So we're seeing he's still quite a bit off. We're not 100% sure yet when he's back. So yeah, it's taking probably a little bit longer than we thought. But we'll know more probably about that next week and seeing how his recovery is going.
How much are you going to have to manage the build-up of minutes in the squad with that 3-game week coming up?
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is now with the 3-game week, I think the changes will either come in the first game or the second game or the third game, but we're going to need everybody. Like you say, with a couple of injuries, Ethan Erhan, is looking more like 6 to 8 weeks out, which is, we're still missing him, who's been ever present for us in there. So we've got to get that right throughout this week. I think you'll see, Tom. The good news is Tom Hamer's back on the grass, starting to get back into things with training. So that's great news. A few niggles from last week's game. We've had a couple of players missing some time in the week. Tom Bailey's came off with a tight hammy, who missed the start of training this week. So as you get into these busy 3-game weeks, it's obviously trying to get to 3 points, but understanding that not every player can do 90 minutes across all 3 and be at their best. So it's about trying to find that balance, really.
You said at the end of the game last week about the chances not being taken being the story of your season. What have you worked on the training ground over this season to try and stop that happening?
Yeah, I think it's to try and stop it. Try and make it happening is probably the easy one. Look, scoring goals is the hardest part of the game. There's no doubt about that. And we've been working hard on trying to finish and getting those chances created. The amount of balls we've put in the box and the quality of ball we've put in there, and when it's flashing across, or you look back at a few games and we've had big moments to score, and 0-0. We score their 1-0 games, and I think that's the bit that's not fallen for us. When we've drew a lot of games, you turn those draws into wins, and things look very different for us at the moment. I don't go back. I say the same. It's the story of our season. I think we've been pretty solid as much as we can in games and hold out. And when the chances have arisen, we haven't quite took them well enough. The amount of box entries and the touches in the box, which we always seem to be doing well on in most games against other opposition, but just can't create that big moment or take that big moment. And I thought that was the same as Cambridge. And every game in this league's hard, and if you don't take those chances, then it can look very different. And when we went 1-0 up, and we probably should have got a couple more, or even we had another big chance to go 2-0 up, that's a different game then, because you've got a bit of space. But then all of a sudden, when the opposition gets one chance and scores, it's 1-1, the game looks very different. You give them something to hold on to. So again, I think it's a story of our season where we've probably not took enough chances and then been in bigger fights than we needed to, and ended up in draws, really.
And on Leyton Orient, probably one of the informed sides in the division, and took Man City all the way last week. Just how tough will this one be? Yeah,
I went to watch them Tuesday night. I jumped on the motorway to go and see them because they're on an absolutely amazing run, and credit to them. They're probably the team that's probably outperforming where everybody thought they would be. I think most of the top and big clubs are up there, and they're probably one that's trying to fight for that position as well. And I went to watch them Tuesday night, and they absolutely dismantled Mansfield in the first half. They're an exciting team. They're fast. They can break quick. They can get in behind you. They defend well. At home, they're a bit of a force. And they're also the informed team. They've probably got better form than Birmingham at the minute, with I think something like 8 wins out of 10 and a draw. So it's going to be a really tough test for us to go away there and get something. But we've got to have a plan and be really resilient and try and go after the game as much as possible. But for sure, this is going to be a tough game.
You want to focus on yourself, of course you do, but do you look at what other teams do against Leyton Orient and see what works and what doesn't work and put that into your game plan?
We look at everything. We as a coaching staff, we don't unturned any stone. We're looking through everything in terms of what works against the opposition, what their strengths, what the weaknesses. We know what their weaknesses are, we know what their strengths are, and it's about how we can exploit their weaknesses on the day to try and get something out of the game. And I think that's the nature of the business. But we look at all different options of how we think the best to pan out with our players and what we can do. And try and be ourselves on the day and be aggressive and try and get after them as much as possible.